Well, good afternoon, everyone. Tom Balzer with the Ohio Trucking Association here, and welcome to another episode of OTA on the Air. Again, thank you very much to our presenting sponsor, Transport Services, for all their support of this event. With us today is Jim Subler, who is the chairman of the Ohio Trucking Association and also the president of Classic Carriers in Versailles, Ohio. Welcome to the show, Jim, and thanks for being on with us.
Hey, thanks, Tom, and thanks for having me today, and welcome to everybody that's joined us, and hope you're enjoying a decent day in Ohio here. But before we get rolling, I got to congratulate Tom on completing the MRF. So you might want to tell everybody about your, 47 minutes and 8 seconds of pure punishment, Tom?
Yeah, so was fortunate enough to take on a challenge of doing an athletic competition for charity. Was going for ALS research and support of those families. So I did MRF, which is a benchmark workout in the CrossFit community. That is, you run a mile, you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then you run another mile, all while wearing a 20-pound weight vest. So yeah, I got done in 42 minutes and 14 seconds. So I lived through it and grabbed a beer immediately afterwards. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. So thanks for bringing it up. It's definitely something that I will do again. I'm thinking about doing another one on July 4th. Yeah, it's named after a Navy SEAL who got killed in action. He was actually on the movie Lone Survivor. It was actually one of those guys from Lone Survivor who was killed in action, is who that's named after. So,
yeah, congratulations to you, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, hard not to start off without talking about coronavirus and the impacts of that. So, how have you seen that, and from your conversations with others in the trucking community, how have you seen COVID affect the trucking industry?
Well, it's hit all of us in one form or another. And, from your car parts haulers that for a while were just completely parked, to us and food that, we were off basically 20%. And, it's your drivers, it's your office people. It's one of those things that, they say, well, you're supposed to be prepared for anything and everything, but who could ever dream this one up and said, be prepared for this? And so I think myself, everybody I've talked to, it's all kind of gut reactions as to how you handle it. When it first started, now I think we have a much better handle on it, and we're all dealing with it according to what the recommendations have been made.
So I guess explain to the group what sort of things that you have done to address COVID with both drivers and the office staff.
Well, the drivers, we did the same thing as everybody else did. You encourage them to carry their hand sanitizers. You have to have a mask. Be careful where you're at. Be conscious of your surroundings at all times. Respect the places you're at. A lot of shippers, they didn't know how to react either. So you had these situations where a driver couldn't even take his bills in. So how does he get his bills signed? And, the first couple of weeks of this was really a mess for everybody. And, tempers were pretty well up. In here, as far as our office, we took everybody, with the social distancing and keeping everybody at least 6 feet apart. We had 7 people, I think, that went and worked from home. And, just because of age or health conditions, that type of thing. The core of our group stayed here. But again, with this whole thing, there is no, to me, right or wrong answer as to how you handled it. It's just you got through it. And, we all did it the best we could. Right now we have one person out that was with somebody that tested positive. That person has not tested positive, but we're just taking the precaution. You have to do that. So again, each day this thing kind of coughs up something else, and it's like, how are we going to deal with that? So it's been interesting to say the least, and I'm sure we've all felt that.
So yeah, I guess talk a little bit about what your experience has been with shippers, early on, I would suppose it was quite a challenge getting all those things in place. But I guess what are some of the things that you've seen from your shippers or conversations you have with other carriers about, how the shipping community has adopted it or adapted to this as well? We heard stories of, we've always had trouble with, shippers allowing drivers to use restroom facilities and those kinds of things, or those are completely locked off during the first couple of weeks of this. But what have you seen, or how have you seen that progress with your shippers?
Most of them, like I say, they were totally caught off guard, exactly like we were. How do you react to this? You have an HR person or a safety person that's saying, oh my God, we can't do this, we can't do that. And, so the first thing you do is lock out any outside interference, which is your truck drivers that are coming in there. And overall, the ones that were just crazy out of the gate have kind of, what we've seen, finally started to make some accommodations. It has changed a lot of things. We found more people willing to accept electronic billing, electronic transfer of signatures. It just, again, so many people are handling it so many different ways. But now, especially with food, we seem to have a much better flow of things and an understanding of we're all in this together. We got to work this out. It's just it's been a real learning curve, and I think as we look into the future, a lot of things are still going to change from this point moving forward about those kind of things, electronic signatures and that. So going to be an interesting ride for a while here.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Does working from home, remote work, does that work in the trucking industry? We've seen quite a change. I mean, we would have never thought 2 years ago of having, Zoom meetings, and now they're a normal part of life. Doing things like this are becoming a normal part of life. Does the remote work model work in the trucking industry?
Well, I'm old school, so I would have to say when we started out with it, totally against it, but knew that that's what we had to do for certain people. I've got to say that the results have been satisfactory. What we see is your back office functions like billing, payroll, those kind of issues are very easily done from home. But I still have an issue with, especially your operations department. They need to be here to work together to, coordinate with a driver, the shipper, the daily operations. I just feel that the people need to be here. Safety is another one. I have a problem telling a driver that he has to go out and do something so that we can all make a living, but we're going to go hide in our bunkers. It doesn't settle well with me. I mean, we're here as an essential business. We need to back him up. And so how can I back him up if I'm hiding in my bunker? Now, again, a person that does payroll, something like that, a little different situation. So I do feel in the future that you're going to find more and more of this, that certain aspects of it, you're just going to let people do it from home and maybe do it a day or two a week. There's a lot of things that we can learn from this. Zoom meetings, these things have really caught hold. And you and I have been doing God knows how many of them a week, it seems like. These are really nice. I do like this, but I still have yet to sit and drink a couple beers with you doing this. So we'll keep it at that.
Well, yeah, and the interesting part you're bringing about that is it's, there's a number of state execs that I talk to a lot. And every time we're at an event, we sit around and have a drink and a cigar. And we've started to do that on Tuesday nights over Zoom. And it's just amazing how the world has changed.
Yeah.
So I guess when do you see this recovering? When do you see the economy start recovering? What do you see it fast, slow? What's your best?
Excuse me. Hell, it depends what day you're listening to the news or looking at your books. I mean, what we're seeing is kind of slowly, gradually increasing revenues every week and our per mile increasing every week, just very slowly. And our deadhead dropping off, from basically our low in April. So, that part is getting better. I see improvements. I think the end of July is going to be kind of our key, if all the schools are going to go back, if we're going to have colleges going back, let's say, that'll be the big thing. If that happens, we should start seeing a really nice uptick. But, I took a trip last week. I went down to Texas and I was just amazed at the amount of truck traffic that's still out there, but very few automobiles, very few campers, it's the boats and all the thing you usually see in the summer. There's not a lot of that out there yet. So I don't see the V recovery. I think we're just going to be a slow climb back. And then the one thing that still hasn't changed, and that's the driver shortage, which is actually to us gotten worse. And for most guys I'm talking to, it's worse than it was.
Yeah, and we can skip down to that. That has been a topic of a lot of discussion about, I think that TT had an article about how the driver shortage doesn't exist for now. And, what are you seeing? I mean, you guys are very active when it comes to recruiting. Like, what are you seeing out there as far as the driver population goes? And those applications either coming in or the quality of the applications coming in?
The apps are there, but they're poor. They are poor. And, it's sad to say a good driver that's willing to work can just pick where he wants to go right now. As we look through them, we're down to, as long as his safety record is good, yeah, maybe he had 5 jobs last year, but yeah, at least we can get him for 2 months, and you're kind of compromising your own safety and that type of thing, because we're just not getting these guys out there. And Ed Nagel sent a thing over the other day of a company down in Texas that had a $20,000 signing bonus,
Wow.
for solo drivers. And it's like, what? We sure as hell can't afford that. So, so the competition is really going to get tight for drivers. That's the good thing, because when it does get tight for drivers is when our rates go up. So, I do feel for trucking, we're going to come back, but a lot of it's just going to be controlled by the driver and their availability.
So are you seeing driver apps coming from other companies that had to lay people off? Or are those folks just kind of hanging on to the unemployment they're getting? Or like, where are you seeing the majority of your apps coming from?
Majority of the apps are the guys at the bottom that have always been moving around. Very few where they've got laid off and you can make a call and get that, especially in the auto parts guys. They just took their unemployment. Who cares? I'm going to get my extra 600 from the government. I think they all just took some time off and enjoyed it, and now that they're going back to work, they've lost some too. Because I think for all of us, when we had drivers come into this thing, into this coronavirus thing, had some guys that just said, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I've been thinking about retiring, so I am going to retire. And I think we've all lost some of the older guys that are not going to come back. And so that just makes it worse. I can tell you that when my friend that has his own school down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, about a 300 truck fleet, they've got applications running out their yin-yang as far as, guys wanting to get into the industry. But then again, his turnover is 125%. So, he just has his own school coming in, and that's kind of the debate. Where do those guys end up? So we're got a lot of young ones coming in, hopefully. So.
Yeah, and then the challenge there is always where do they get employed first? Because a lot of insurance companies won't allow, you got to have 2 years of experience, and so there's some risk involved with bringing on a young driver and being able to finish them as well, and get them acclimated to being a driver and into the industry.
Right, and as soon as they get trained, then they take a local job. So,
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. So prior to the coronavirus, what were some of your goals as chairman of OTA?
Well, membership, and you and I have talked about that. Growing the membership and trying to bring more people into the trucking association. The OTA is a great organization. The more we can work together as an industry to help each other, to combat some of the things the states come up with, it's a very important goal to me. That the more people that are involved in the industry, the better it's going to be for all of us.
Did get a question coming in from the group that is kind of important to the or germane to the conversation we just had. It says, why do you think the driver shortage has gotten worse?
I think unemployment is a big part of it. I mean, that's my feeling. I really do. It may change when we hit fall. I mein, let's face it, if a guy's making $1,000 a week on unemployment, why not take the summer off? And I really feel that's a big part of it. But again, I feel that trucking is so looked down upon as a job, as far as being a driver, that we're just not getting any interest in it. And until the funds from the government stop, then people start looking at it, well, maybe that wouldn't be a bad way to get back on my feet, So that's my personal feelings. Can't back it up with any evidence, but that's my personal feelings.
Right. Yeah, and I've heard the same thing. I talked to a carrier who hauls primarily for an auto plant, and so the auto plant is running 6 days a week, and he's got, his fleet's 100+ trucks, and he's got 24 of them sitting empty right now because he can't find people to put in the chair. So so now that COVID is here and things have changed a little bit with everyone's business, what are your goals now for OTA? What are your, how has COVID changed how OTA leadership operates?
Well, the big thing for me is, as this is my year of being a chairman after probably I don't know how many years I've been on this board, but God, I'd like to have a meeting. We can all get together. That was kind of the fun of the industry, is meetings and the social and the networking parts of trucking. It's very important to know your competitors, to know your peers, and I've always enjoyed that part of it. Any of you that know me, let's have a beer and we'll figure this out one way or another. And so I really look forward to hopefully getting back to that part of it. Again, then, as far as what OTA can do, keep us abreast of what is going on. And, Tom, you got daily things coming out. You got a good staff in there that's really staying up on things. Get back on our educational programs again, where we can meet in our new office building. Or our office, it's a beautiful little place for a smaller group to meet, and really get back to networking and working together to better improve our industry.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that as well. It's we talked a little bit about the Zoom meetings. They're great, but it's always nice to be able to see someone and be in person, and we're definitely gonna get that chance in September because the annual conference is going to happen no matter rain, sleet, snow, or COVID. It's gonna go on. So we're looking forward to that. So what does OTA, in your opinion, look like 10 years from now?
Well, I'd like to see our membership up probably by 25 to 30%, because everybody says, well, the small trucking companies are going to go away. No, they're not. There's always going to be a need there for that small niche guy. Um, I can't see them taking away the total entrepreneurship of trucking, and the giant guys taking over. Yeah, you may see the middle get squeezed, but there'll be the little and there'll be the big. So, the more knowledge we can help the small guys to be able to compete and to have the opportunities to, as all of our allied supporters, for networking, that's very important. We're a place that, a small trucking company can come to learn things.
So we did talk a little bit about, the driver shortage and the apps coming in, but, as far as recruiting goes, Classic Carriers has been very active on social media as a recruitment tactic. What are some of the things that you all have learned by the use of social media platforms when it comes to recruiting drivers?
Well, number one, don't ever let one of your trucks run through a house with the ass end of it sticking out that says Classic Carriers. Social media, that's been a problem for us for a long time. But the one caption does say we do get our drivers home. So,
Right.
but it's learning where to advertise, to what group to advertise to. Um, you know, we started working with a third party now to help us more on this, to get your algorithms going. But even with that, what we're finding is it's that same group down here that's looking, and that's the group that has always been looking down there. For some reason, just as a refrigerated carrier, let's say, we're not getting up to that next level of guy very often. We're just not getting there. So I don't know if it's going to be money, if it's going to be guaranteed brand new trucks. I'm not sure what it is that, these guys are really looking for. I mean, I know home time is the huge thing, but even with that, you can give them the home time and they're still not happy. So it's really a difficult task. Not to take away from everything we've done in the past, like newspapers and all that other advertising. I will say that, the Craigslist and all those social media things, Facebook, all that is where we are getting our best results. I mean, to at least get apps in, whether they're any good or not. So to wrap it up with that.
Good. So how have you seen the candidate pool, not only for drivers, but, for other staff members change over the course of your career?
Wow. That's been real interesting in that for our office and warehouse that we're looking for people, like for dispatch operations, it's just amazing the applications you get in that seem qualified and how many times you get ghosted where they've accepted everything. I even had one recently accepted the job and never showed up because he'd already took another job at another trucking company. And, it's people and their lack of responsibilities and lack of ethics that just amazes me that I've seen over the years and how it's changed. And it's really been difficult to get people to come in that will show up for work on time and that actually care. And I know we're all seeing that, everybody,
So you also sit on the pre-pass board, which for those on the call, pre-pass board is governed by a group of state representatives, either state trucking association execs or people from the trucking industry, as well as the enforcement community. So how has the bypass technology and other technologies changed the industry that you have seen?
Well, I think going into the future, this is going to be a big one as to, you know, your electronic data that, you know, your truck is basically transmitting, and what the states through the scales are going to be able to pick up, you know, as just as a weigh in motion type thing. You know, the old thing of, well, it's 200 miles between the 2 points and he did it in 2 hours. So, you know, whoa, how'd he do that? You know, so the tracking of our equipment, the control of our credentials, I think, you know, license plates in the near future are probably just going to be nil and gone because it's all going to be electronic. But as far as pre-pass, what we're working for is to integrate better with everybody's systems that are already out there to become an add-on. Everybody's wanting to get away from 8 things laying up in your dash. You know, you want one thing to do your tolling and everything for you. So I think pre-pass is really doing a good job on that, putting a lot of money into developing the products that we need to stay the leader of the game there, because you know, there are competitors out there that claim they're cheaper, but there's a big difference in the quality of the information. So you know, everything for the future, and I think we all have to accept this. You know, when e-logs came along and electronic engines, and the list just goes on and on, collision avoidance, we're becoming more electronic every day, and everything is going to be so controlled. And that also is, I think, a piece of why we're going to lose some drivers too, the older drivers, because they don't want to deal with this. The newer drivers, they just figure it's part of it. So
we got a question come in. It says, have you had any experience with onboard cameras, or have any comment on them, especially on the inward facing cameras?
yeah, we use, we're switching brands, and I guess I'll just avoid naming brands, but I would say be very careful as to which system you go with, because electronic cameras are just like anything else, like your cell phone. You know, the quality changes like every 2 years. It just gets 5 times better than it was. And what we thought was a great system, you know, 2 years ago, it just has been failing us left and right. So we went to a newer system, which I'll say that we went to Netrodyne, and we're just tickled to death with what the results we're getting there. And we do have the inward facing cameras. We get a lot of pushback. You got some guys that'll hang their hats over it, but it's like, guys, we're there to watch, to protect you, you know, and you just have to be careful with that. And that's what you have to sell them. You know, we have a video of a driver that was involved in a multiple fatality that the video clearly proved it was not our fault. And so we show that to our new guys to say, this is why it's here, because if we didn't have that video, that guy would be getting blamed for this accident. And here's how it happened. The phantom car did it, but we got the phantom car. So, you know, you try and sell that, but, you know, more and more they're starting to accept it. Again, your younger guys go, yeah, whatever. You know, that's just part of it. Your older guys are the ones that's bucking it, you know. And let's face it, there's a camera everywhere anymore, so they're getting used to that.
So do you ever see a day that there actually is this driverless truck utopia?
Personally, I don't think I will. You know, you may in a certain lane, and I know, you know, they're talking about the Columbus to Indianapolis corridor being the, what is it, the technical dream or something, you know, but you may in a situation like that, but the infrastructure to accept that is so huge, and that, like, yeah, the driver could go sit in the bunk, but you still need a driver. The second thing is, what if you got the little, you know, the kid eating the ho-ho sitting at home driving the truck, you know, via the Wi-Fi or whatever, you know, those things could happen, but, you know, it still requires all these people and places to park the trucks, backing in, all these kind of things that certain instances you may see it, but I think if you want driverless, put your trailer on the railroad, let them haul it, and then you get to the other end, you have your driver there. So they already got it in my essence. And to me, the platooning is a joke, and I'm glad to see that kind of went away. I don't know why anybody thought that was intelligent, but it was selling for a while. So somebody made a lot of money on it. So.
Right. Yeah. Just for the audience, we are kind of winding down with our questions that we had pre-prepared. So if you have other questions for Jim or I, please use the Q&A section to ask those. So looking back on your career, what was the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
Oh boy, you didn't ask me that one, Tom. I have to think about that a little bit.
Well, my favorite was the Keith Tuttle. If you want to make $1 million in trucking, you start with 2 million.
Yeah. Well, my dad. I mean, some of you guys have probably heard me say it. My dad, which grew up through the regulated industry, when it was fully regulated. I'll never forget him telling me. He said, if you take 10 truckers and put them in a room and put in 10 prostitutes, they'll throw out the prostitutes because they have more fun screwing each other. So that was always one of, the things that, and it's one of the things that I think has really changed in this industry is that we work together more and more through organizations like OTA, TCA, ATA, and we learn who each other are. And you do the social stuff, you learn to respect your competitor. Your best competitor is a healthy competitor, one that's strong and making money, because he's not going to undercut you every time you turn around, because he still wants to make money. And that's where we need to be as an industry. And that's why I really, love these organizations and love being part of them, because we're better together.
Yeah, that was my next question, was what's the best piece of advice you can give someone? You said that a number of times, is your best competitor is a healthy competitor, and I think that that's one thing that, as gets lost in this industry, is people think that they want to drive everyone else out of business, but we can all make this work and get this moving if we work together. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Any other advice you'd have to somebody who's out there starting up or working through?
Well, one of the things you and I haven't talked about, and that's going to be insurance. And, our health insurance is one thing, but our liability insurance, that's starting to scare me. We were very fortunate last year. We renewed with no increase. And since then, we've decided to, have a not so good luck for a while. And so, as you look for our renewal time, we know we're going to be looking at a pretty dang big increase. And other carriers I've talked to have already got theirs, and it's almost scary as to where this is going to go. And, I think as an association, we need to, and we discussed this a little bit yesterday on insurance, we need to be able to tell people this is kind of the way we feel things are going, and here's good places to go. It's going to be an interesting year for insurance, and especially with this whole COVID thing, because I think you're going to find more players get out of it and not insure trucking because of the COVID thing, the nuclear verdicts. We're such a society that just wants to sue the hell out of everybody.
Right.
This is going to be a wild year.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think insurance has been brewing for at least the last 12 months, and now it's just going to get worse. And, maybe the only saving grace is that coronavirus decreased the number of traffic accidents on the road. But the problem is during that time, the nuclear verdicts that came out were just have the insurance industry just scared because they are so large. And it'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to take some creative financing, for the lack of a better word, to make the insurance work moving forward, that you may have to go get another layer. You may have to go out and find it at some other venues or find multiple layers of insurance. And that's always been the challenge that the FMCSA has, is they make a carrier designate an insurer of record, and you can only have one. So that's the hard part of being able to find other insurance options that are out there. So yeah, I agree. Insurance is going to be a bigger issue this year than probably ever before.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know what the solution is.
And even health insurance too, you know, as far as watching those premiums climb and climb, you know, again, our drivers are wanting more. You want to provide them good insurance, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
More expenses. Well, anything else for any other thoughts for the group? Any other topics that you think that we missed that we should be talking about?
Well, the only thing is, you know, convention's coming in September, and I hope to God there's some people there. Let's not be afraid. Let's get together and drink some of Tom's beer, you know. So,
Definitely.
You know, I definitely, you know, my year as a chairman, I haven't got to do much. They've canceled everything we had other than Zoom meetings. It's like, you know, I'd like to at least go out, you know, with a good time and have a good convention. I know you've got a good base put together as to the speakers and the panels we're going to have. So really looking forward to getting to convention and maybe having some of this stuff behind us a little bit to where, you know, we maybe are ready to relax a little more.
I agree. We're definitely being more creative when it comes to convention for the group. Archie Griffin is the keynote speaker, so we'll have a little bit of Ohio State football flavor there, and he does a great presentation on leadership. We have a great grouping of programs. We are going to lay down a layer of the microscopic killer spray that we use here in the office on the entire hotel. Before we walk in on day one, we'll be cleaning. We'll be having little bottles of hand sanitizer everywhere. We're going to be following all of the social distancing protocols that are in place. In fact, Brady's working on the layouts of the rooms right now. So we are doing everything that we can to make sure that area is as safe as possible for everyone walking in and to be able to enjoy that program. And if you still don't seem convinced, we're going to be also be offering the conference via Zoom as well. So you'll be able to buy a pass to get you a virtual part of it. So one of the questions says, what keeps you both excited about our industry aside from beer, with a smile?
You know, growing up in it, I still love it. You know, I love people and I love trucks. You know, it just it's what we do. We're part of, you know, feeding America. We're part of, you know, keeping America going. And I know that, you know, I'm like everybody else. You have these days where you got one driver that just pisses you off so bad you think, why do I even bother with this anymore? But, you know, when it's all said and done, you know, the industry's been good to me. Hell, I'm 66 years old. I wanted to retire next year. That went out the flipping door. So, you know, it's what I do, and I enjoy getting up and coming to work every day. I do. I just, I love this industry. I love the people, and I love the friends I've made in it. And again, that comes back to the networking, because I got some great friends that I don't get to see a lot, but we share the same values because we all share the same industry. So.
Well, good. Jim, again, I appreciate you coming on with us and talking with the members about the association, about your experiences in the industry, and sharing your wisdom from your career. So we very much appreciate that, and being part of the OTA on the Air program sponsored by Transport Services. Tune in next week where we're going to have Andrew Huffman, who's one of our lobbyists and I to have a discussion about legislative initiatives that are going on in the Ohio legislature and how they'll impact the industry. So again, Jim, thank you so much, and we'll see you all next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.